Yeah, I'm Damian Jay Clay. I'm a novelist, a writer in general. I do some other bits and pieces, but it's mainly novels. Um, and I write kind of very specifically in the area of, I'd say, gay and neurodiverse fiction. Um, that doesn't mean my readers have to be gay or neurodiverse to enjoy them, but it just means that there's a basis in those in a lot of what I write. I tend to write a lot of comedy because I like things that are funny. And, I think a lot of people respond to that. I do write some satire. I get quite deep and dark sometimes, but I also write children's books, young adult books. I've got a detective series that's coming out in a few months. I write fantasy, science fiction. I write across the board, basically. But what I really love is making people laugh. I have to say that's the best thing, and it's one of the things that I think makes British culture so good. We've got the best comedians in the world, the best history of comedy, I think, in the world, and punk again. No one touches us for punk. A few people have come close, but but it's a British thing, That's what's great about it, and we should be proud. We should be proud of our comedians, proud of our musicians, because we produce some phenomenal talent, I think, anyway.
Who would you say was your favourite comedians?
Oh wow, what a question.
I didn't even have that one prepared either. It just came to me. I'm going off script.
At the moment, I love Stuart Lee. I think he's really great. But I think you have to look a little bit in the past for his best stuff. Frankie Boyle in the same way. He's absolutely fabulous. But again, he's changed a little bit of late. I liked him when he was a little bit more direct, funny. Who else is great? Ricky Gervais. I have a soft spot for some American comedians. Have you ever seen a TV show, American TV show? The name of it's going to escape me now because I'm so rubbish. In fact, I'm going to have to look it up. I'm really sorry about this.
No, it's okay, Damien. I do the same thing because I'm neurodiverse and I write things down and then I get really excited because something will come to my mind and I'll want to say it and it's... Yeah, so I it's fine. You're okay here.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
That's Larry David. He's just so incredibly funny, and that show. What I love about it is it's improv. He basically writes the idea like two characters will come in and they'll talk about this, and he gives that to the actors and he lets the actors run with it. And so what you see on the screen is just electric, absolutely electric. So I love that. I love that whole thing. But yeah, I like people who actually make me gut laugh. That's what it takes. A lot of American comedy tends to be, somebody comes in and says something that isn't really that funny, but you hear the audience, the canned audience laugh anyway, and it's like, yeah, not interested. It's when someone has me on the floor aching for breath that I know I'm not going to be able to take. That's when they've got you, and that's what I really like. I like comedy that does that. I like comedy that turns me over, yeah. In the same way punk music turns me over. You listen to a really good punk track and it's like, yeah. You're set up for the day.
What tracks do you find like set you up for the day that you really feel and you really get into?
Well, it's funny. I don't know if you've read the novel or not, but the chapter titles, each one of the chapter titles,
I noticed that
is a punk track or lyrics from a punk track. and almost any of them, would be tracks that I feel that way about. But just from those tracks, like I think it's a lesser known one, but Irrelevant Battles by Patrick Fitzgerald. I love that track. It's very simple. In fact, the verse only has one chord, and he's literally singing the same note over that. But it's just such a good, powerful lyric, and that's great. And stuff like the Pistols, the Dead Kennedys, the Clash. I love the Stranglers. I mean, anything that's kind of like that. I love it. And when you're writing, especially when I'm writing, I tend to write to music. I'll have stuff going on underneath. And I know a lot of people write to kind of like playlists, and I do too. And I've got various playlists for different moods, but obviously when I'm writing Generation Vex books, I'm listening to my punk playlist. So
yeah, because as you just said, like every chapter's like a punk song, or it's got the title of a punk song. Like you've got the Sham 69 one, and I keep singing that now because I've seen it in the book. I've not read the whole book yet.
Hurry Up, Harry.
Yeah, Hurry Up, Harry.
We're going down the pub.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm still getting my head around, because I'm still nearly halfway into the book, and then you've got the character who's like the stockbroker, and I'm trying to. Rupert, I don't know. I can't decide at the moment. I can't decide whether he's a villain or a hero, because I can't decide. You're not going to tell me, are you?
He's definitely a hero to me, and I think by the end of the book you'll see how good he comes. He's spectacular. I think the thing about Rupert is, he started off in a punk band when he was 18, and he was forced by circumstances to get real about life and go to university and undertake a career, and he became a banker. And then at the start, obviously, of Generation Vex, of the first novel, he gets sacked from his job, and he's not poor; he's extremely rich, and he decides, "Fuck it, I'm gonna launch the band again." I like him. I think he's really funny, and what I like is that even during the bits where he's doing his whole, merchant banking thing, he's got that whole punk rock presence behind him. And he's quite vicious with people. It's really funny.
Yeah, it's like the investors. Like it was like being sarcastic with them, but they thought it was they kind of thought he was their friend.
Yeah. I mean, but he was just a money manager, and he's obviously got bigger plans.
Yeah.
And then he goes into the office and takes down his manager, which I thought was just hilarious.
I thought that was quite good, actually.
and then gets sacked. So yeah, I really like him. And he's someone who's been a father who's been a bit absent from his son's life, but he does come good. His son tells him that I'm really not coping, and he steps up and puts him in charge of the band, which is like a really odd thing to do, but he brings him in, and I like that. I like that this band becomes the place where the two characters actually really do meet and find out about each other. There's something quite tender about that, which I really enjoy.
So I'm going to crying for the second half, am I?
Oh, lots and lots. Yeah, there's loads of tears to come. Yeah, for sure.
You've already made me cry. And what's the? Hang on. I'm the neurodiversity. Ollie in the Ching Fang in the dark.
Ollie and the
Kling Fangers in the dark. Ah.
Have you read it?
I've not read it, but I was watching the YouTube.
Oh yeah.
And that was really touching me, actually. There was something about Ollie that I identified with, as when I was growing up. Like sort of. With bullies and, feeling a bit different and like, going into your own world. That's what I saw in that. And that's it's getting me now, actually.
Isn't it funny though? I mean, I felt the same when I put the video together and I watched it afterwards, and I had tears.
Oh.
Just that there's some little bits in it that just really, really hit me, and the most stupid bits. There's a bit where in the book where the guy who's teaching him magic plays 3 blind mice on the violin, and it's awful. The guy just can't play, and there's a slide in the video where it's got him playing the violin and Ollie grabbing his ears, and for some reason it just hit me. I have no idea why, it just really got me. And there was the other bit where the Ollie's riding a dragon and he's got his hand in the air, and his best friend Samantha Salmon sitting behind him looking really unimpressed, which just made me laugh so much. But that's an interesting book. I mean, again, I write with neurodiverse people in mind, and what that book is about is that the danger in that book and the threats in that book, they're as real as any other book, but they don't get solved by magical swords. They get solved by talking and communication and learning how to listen, which I think is a little bit more positive. Not that I'm trying to be, preach to anybody, but I just think it's a nice way of doing things, and kids who read it will suddenly realise, hopefully, that not everything you're afraid of is going to hurt you. Sometimes the best thing you can do is communicate and talk, which is actually a big thing over all my books.
So your neurodiversity, what's your neurodiversity?
I'm dyspraxic. I have quite a number of comorbidities as well that fold across other things. But I'm definitely not autistic. I don't have ADHD. I have some elements of both of them, if that makes sense. But I am dyspraxic. I'm fully dyspraxic, which is its own set of joys. But but I think it's really important as a writer. I don't want my books to come across like DSM-5 manuals. It's not, the point isn't to catalogue and explain things. It's to give lived experience of the characters. At no point does, for example, Elliot in Generation Vex ever say, I'm neurodiverse or I'm autistic or whatever, even though he happens to be autistic. He's actually undiagnosed, but he's just who he is, right? He's a character. He's living with things day to day, which is how everybody lives. I don't think anybody wanders around with a mental health handbook saying, "Oh, I'm neurodiverse." I saw a great meme the other day, and it still makes me laugh. It was a woman saying to her mother, your son doesn't look autistic.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the mother says to the son, oh darling, please enact autism for this person. So funny.
I've seen that one. I've seen that. I've felt it myself because my youngest son's autistic, and I'm going through it at the minute. And it's like, what do you want here?
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think people don't try not to recognise it as lived experience. They try to recognise it as a category. And that's instantly the wrong way of doing things. You don't want to see people as categories, you want to see people as people, right? So, and the same with the characters in my books. The book I've got coming out next month, which I think you'll absolutely love, is called Swan. And it's about a bunch of teenagers who go to a special school. And it's the special school doesn't exist, but it's a special school built by a billionaire. It's kind of like X-Men for autistic kids. And these kids act so out of order sometimes, but only when they're misunderstood and they're things are done wrong, they get out of hand. but it's hilarious. It's like a cross between The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime and Train Spotting. It's really on the edge, but it's funny. It's really funny. If you're not howling by the third chapter, I completely misread people.
Did you write a theme song for that, for Swan?
For Swan, no. No. It's interesting. The story, music's a big thing for me. I've been in bands, for years, but not so much recently. But most of my life I've been in bands, and I've been a songwriter. So music always plays a big part in my novels. And Swan, the main character of Swan, he's a musician. He's starting a band, calls the band Swan. And I don't know if you know, Swan is actually a neurodiverse diagnosis. Means syndrome without a name. And it's a really interesting categorization. They give it to people who don't fall into fixed, definitions of neurodiversity. So you might have a kid who's got a couple of elements of, say, autism, a couple of elements of ADHD, a couple of elements of Tourette's, but they won't actually meet the criteria for being diagnosed for any of those things. And so they give them this designation, SWAN, syndrome without a name, and it's actually a really gentle designation, because it means we know there's something that's different about you. We know there's something that you might need help with, but we're not going to refuse you categorization because you don't fit neatly into the categorizations we've got. And so here's a it's almost a catch-all for someone who's definitely neurodiverse but doesn't fit into any category. And so the book's called Swan, the band's called Swan, and yes, there's a song which you can listen to on YouTube, and that's the song that his guitarist sings to him at the end of the novel on stage live for the first time. He doesn't know it's coming, and it's so tender. It absolutely made me howl after I'd written it, because what he says to him, it's great. It really is exactly what you want. It's somebody saying, "I'll be there for you. I'm not going to leave." And who wants anything more than that?
No, it's true. Because I don't know when you were diagnosed with your dyspraxia, or I was, because I'm dyspraxic as well. So it's
okay.
Nice to meet a fellow dyspraxic. I don't know if you've heard of a writer called Cherry Bay. She's a poet. She's dyspraxic as well. Yeah, how old were you when you got your diagnosis?
Well, I wasn't officially diagnosed. I was. See, I'm quite old, which is the sad fact. And when I was younger, I don't think it was something that was even. I think it was probably known about in some circles, but it wasn't widely known, and it certainly hadn't hit. I'm not even sure what they were called at the time. Special needs teachers or special needs therapists or whatever they were at the time. And so I had an assessment, but I think the assessment only looked for autism. I'm pretty sure it only looked for autism. Even ADHD at the time, I don't think was on the map. So, and I wasn't classified as autistic, so that was it. But I've got all of the classic symptoms of dyspraxia, especially dysgraphia. My writing is just it's insanely bad. I mix cases. It's often been described by teachers as a spider climbing through an inkwell onto the page, and that kind of thing. But I've never had official diagnosis. And the fact that I know I'm dyspraxic, and I've dealt with all of the issues. And I think I've dealt with the issues well, actually. It's not a thing that I worry about anymore. I'm dyspraxic, and if you don't like it, then fuck you.
Yeah.
I have limitations, sure, but I don't really care about them. I work at what I work at, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And my strengths outweigh any negatives, you know, and I don't really care too much about the negatives anymore. I mean, there are always some issues. In fact, to be honest with you, I can't even tell you now the last time I picked up a pen. The last time I used a pen was probably more than 10 years ago. I have no connection with writing in that way. I just can't do it. If I write something, it just becomes a badly broken code. Even I can't decipher it 10 minutes later. So what's the point? But you know, we've got computers now, and I can type, so that's good.
I just think the best things for like us neurodivergents, computers, and I hate to say it, AI in some ways. In some ways, when you can't find specific words in your head, when you've got, I don't know if you get, you probably don't get this, but I sometimes when I want to write something or say something and I can't find the words, I kind of type out what I want, sort of the gist of what I want to say, and it'll help me.
The surrounding thing, like a web that surrounds it. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. You know, one of the things that I do, and I don't know if you do this, but again, I find it really hilarious, especially when I'm talking to people online, because I use Discord quite a lot, is I will intend to write a word, but I will use a completely different word, completely out of the blue, for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And sometimes it can be really hilarious. I'll say something so odd, and I'll be like, "Oh, where did that come from?" You know, I'm wanting to say, I don't know, I'm going to the shops today, and instead I write, you know, I'm going to the bananas, and it's like, where did that even come from? It's just really, it's like my fingers just take over. Really odd. But yeah, that happens quite a lot, which is very interesting being a writer when I'm going through edits and things. I find the slip-ups that I make.
Yeah, I get that. I get that as well. And sometimes in my head, like I remember in an interview, I said to somebody, they're not really interviews. These, I'm not really grilling anyone. I said, "Oh, I'll catch you out," and I meant, "Oh, I'll see you out and about." And I even listened back to me. It's like, "Yeah, you know where I'm going. I'll catch you out." And I bet he was like, "What the hell?" And I could see he was really puzzled. So I ended up having to really explain what I meant.
But you know, that's the point. I think we're our own best therapists, in all honesty. And as we go through life, we learn how to deal with what we've got to deal with, right? And there's no one better than us to say what it is and what it isn't, you know. And I've done really badly with therapy when I've had it, so I've kind of had to rely on myself. But I think taking that attitude, and it's a punk attitude. It really is a punk attitude. Mm-hmm. Take that attitude of, I am who I am, and if you don't like it, fuck you. You know, it sounds harsh, but it isn't. It's just a way of living. It's a way of being able to cope and live with the way the world is. Because, you know, no one's going to make excuses for you, and I'm certainly not going to make excuses for myself. I'm just going to be who I am and do the best that I can, and that's all I can ask of myself. That's what anyone can ask of themselves. And I think good therapy and good friends is what pulls you into that. It's people who make you the best of what you are. And you know, we've all met people. We've had people come into our lives who turn us into the worst of what we can be, right? Who make us angry or annoyed or resentful or whatever. Just and you know, you can tell a negative person from a mile off. They've got nothing positive to say. They've got a constant frown on their mouth, and they want to shout at the world because everything's negative. And you know, that's instantly the ultimate turn off for me. I like people who are a little bit positive and want to make change, you know. And I think that's the illusion of punk, because punk can be really sweary, and I know this because, you know, this is a punk novel I've written, and it's very, very fucking sweary. But punk isn't negative sweary. Punk is positive sweary. Punk behind punk is this conviction that we can make the world a better place for people to live in. It's about fairness. It's about removing the negatives and being able to live more positively without the negatives. And we do it by swearing. We do it by telling people what's what. But it's never done in a a nasty way. It's done in a we're going to tell you the truth as loud as we can kind of way. And that, believe it or not, actually was the foundation stone for writing Generation Vex. My belief was that Generation X, which is my generation, owes a message to Generation Z, who are around now. And it's something that I think has been missed, and I think it's something that's really lacking. Over the last, however long it's been, 10, 20 years, we've done something really stupid as a society, and really quite annoying. We've taught people to shut off communication, and I think it's the worst thing we can possibly do. Instead of disagreeing and arguing and debating, we've learned how to cancel people. And Generation Z uses that like, a social contract. It's like their social world has this block user button on it, which no other generation has ever had a block user button. But they'll just press it. If they don't agree with something, if something upsets them, instead of confronting it and trying to understand what's going on, they just go, no, block user, well, that's it, I'm just disengaging. And that's the lesson punk has to teach Generation Z. Don't shut down. Pick up a fucking guitar, pick up a microphone, and shout your truth. Don't shut down. Say what it is you want to say. Because, quite frankly, I've been waiting for the next musical revolution for the last 20, 30 years, and I'm still waiting for it. And it's got to come from Generation Z. It's got to be one of them who does it. And it's got to be angry. It's got to be shouty. And I'll listen to it. I'll love it. I'm waiting for it. Feed me your punk, or whatever it happens to be. But that's what I'm waiting for, and that's what I'm hoping. The message of this book is it's stop disengaging, start speaking, start talking, because the world only gets better when we talk and converse, and start to try and understand each other and learn a bit more about other people's positions. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. I really do. And you know what? You're so right. I think, and I hear what you're saying about the communication. It's the whole, you can block, you can like, oh, I'm not talking to you. But I've actually said to people who've argued online, like, why are you arguing here? Why don't you just pick up the phone and speak to each other? I hear you. I really do hear you. And I've not thought of it like that before, like the message to Generation Z.
And what it's fed into is this culture war that we're all living through at the moment. And that's about the most negative thing there can possibly be. And it's led to so many bad things. We've now got a situation where politicians don't really want to do anything anymore. They don't need to do anything more. All they need to do is pick up a flag and cheer for their side. And people love it. They love it. They're on the left side or the right side, and they'll just shout for that side. And their politicians don't have to do a bloody thing. They just got to shout, oh, pronouns, or, oh, we're disrespecting the past, or, oh, Muslims, or whatever it is. They shout for it. And that side just goes, yeah, he's great. We like this politician. He's on our side. And they don't have to change anything anymore. They don't have to do a thing. They just shout and shout and shout. And we're allowing it by having this culture war, by making everything about who's the loudest, who's saying the loudest thing, who's smacking the other side, and not actually going, how do we change this to make things better? It's interesting, I had this chat with somebody the other day, and I was talking about the whole thing with the way, at the moment, the loudest hashtags are the ones that get the most noise. And they were saying, well, the ones with the loudest hashtags are the ones who need the most. And I said, no. The ones who... If the people who needed it most had the loudest hashtag, the loudest hashtag in the UK would be homeless. Would be hashtag homeless. And they've got no political power at all. The homeless are fucked. And I don't remember the last time I heard any politician saying, what are we going to do about the homeless situation? And that annoys me a lot actually. I'm not discounting other people's issues, and we've all got issues that you know, that are linked to our identities, and fine. If there's a common pool of funds available, which is basically what the government is, right? Maybe it should help the people most in need first, and not the people with the loudest hashtag. Maybe we should start by saying, how do we end homelessness in the UK? I'd like that. I'd vote for the politician who said we're going to end homelessness in the UK. That's our number one goal. And look, hey, that's just me, but I just think the people most in need should come first.
It's just such a fucked up, complex situation at the minute. You know, that the homeless, the people don't have a solid home like they used to. You know, social housing, that's practically non-existent. You know, you're lucky if you get social housing. You know, living in temporary accommodation. I mean, some of the situations young people, children are living in at the minute are just absolutely disgusting.
It's horrendous.
It is. And another chat I had the other day, we were talking about genocide, and that shouldn't be happening either. You know, didn't we learn nothing 80 years ago? And the thing is, after the Second World War, they built a lot of social housing, they put a lot of things in to help working people, and it's all been taken away.
You know, conservative government after conservative government has made sure that they've stripped back as much as they can. And we need to, you know, what power do I have? This is the question I ask myself all the time. What power do I have? And the only power that I have is writing. And so I try and use my writing to hopefully enact some positive change. And I know writing can't do that. I know it can help, you know, make people think and maybe change some perceptions. And so that's what I do, which makes me unmarketable. But, you know, I write. I'm someone who writes because they have to. I'm someone who's got an inner voice that says, you know, today you're going to write about this, mate, and you don't have any choice, because if you don't, I'm going to punish you with no sleep for a week. And so I write what I have to write, and I feel really good doing it. You know, I really do. I try to enact positive change. That's really the heart of what I do. I try to do as a writer, and all my books focus on that.
Like creative stuff, it just doesn't seem to be like that anymore. You know, does that make sense?
It does, and I don't want to sound jaded, but I think there is an element of the way things have turned politically over the last 10, 20 years that's really bled into our media. I don't think this is going to be a shock to anybody, but films over the last 20 years have become crap. I now expect to watch a film and be disappointed by it. I used to love, you know, going to blockbusters and looking at what was out, and I'd be excited about taking a film home and watching it. I've not felt that excitement in 20 years. Even when a film was coming out that I thought might be good, I'm still thinking, yeah, I know it's going to annoy me, because this modern strand of you know, the culture war has found its way in even into our media, even into our computer games. I mean, that's a real joke. And so I write from a place that's probably 20 years in the past, trying to give the reader something that they love, and maybe they can't get anywhere else these days, or very rarely these days. To write something that's going to make them actually feel really good at the end of the novel, and as though they've had a good experience, and maybe have learned something, maybe have felt something, definitely have laughed, almost certainly have cried. And that's what I write. That's what I try and do. It's made it impossible to find an agent. They will hate me, but I is what I is.
Yeah, and do you know what? But what's made, like, obviously the punk DIY thing, the punk DIY ethics, your books are accessible, and you've got nobody telling you what to do, and you've got, like, I signed up to the newsletter, and you've got the free books as well. So there's just so much you've written. There's just so much to go through. I think there's a bit of something for everyone, but you've got that freedom, and you're not like, I think that's one good thing about modern times is, you're able to connect with people in that way. Like, you're able to offer, like, free books. You don't have to rely on a publisher. Like, that was something like 20-30 years ago. You'd have to use a publisher. You'd have to pay for printing. The things that, you can just, like, access books online now. You can access reading online now, and like with myself, like, you can make writing bigger, and you can change the backgrounds, and it makes it more accessible, which I think makes it sadder that you've got a younger generation who doesn't seem to be reading as much as we did. Or
yeah, I get that. I mean, Ollie's a really good example of a way I'm trying to counter. The books actually are quite short, but they're full stories, they're full story arcs. But what I've tried to do is I've tried to write, with the Ollie book, something that will make both the parents and the children laugh. Because I'm sure, I don't have kids, I've never had kids, but I'm pretty sure that having to read to your kids every night can be really, really dull if the books are dull. And if you're reading the same books over and over, it must bore you senseless. So I thought, what about if I write a book that's going to make the parent laugh as much as the child? And that's what I've done. That's what I tried to do. And so the Ollie books are about that. They're short books, so they're not intimidating for a child reader. They're fun, they're full of adventure, they're full of love, they're full of humour. And there are things in them that I'm hoping the parents will laugh at as well. And that's the whole idea behind them.
Which is good. I like the thought of, like, accessibility and everybody being able to get involved. With my sons, I've read to them both as I've been growing up, and there has been a couple of books that do make you laugh. But I know what you mean. Like my boys, they'll, when they were small, they'd have a book that they'd be really into, and you'd be reading it night after night, and it'd be like, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it must be lovely to do that as well, though. There must be something really warming and heartwarming about reading to your kids. And I know as a kid myself, I loved being read to. I mean, it was for me. It's even now audiobooks. I can't listen to audiobooks because they just put me to sleep. In fact, that's exactly what I use audiobooks for. I put an audiobook on at night, and within 5 minutes, I'm off to La La Land. It's like Mogadon for me. It really is. It's like, the best sleeping drug known to man. Put on an audiobook, and 5 minutes later I'm snoring away. So that's pretty great.
Have you found that the story seeped into your subconscious and you wake up and you feel like you know the story?
Actually, no. I mean, it's interesting because sleep is a real big part of my writing process. It's kind of hard to explain, but I tend to write anywhere from 8 to 16 hours a day. Which sounds crazy, I know, but I will sleep. Sometimes I'll nap and I'll wake up, and what I'll have in my mind is just the next part of whatever I'm writing. So it almost feels a little bit like cheating, and that's the way things come to me. So yeah, but no, I don't. I mean, that would be great, wouldn't it? Imagine if you could program a dream, so the dream just took in whatever audio you were listening to, and then just you just dreamt it. You could go to Narnia for the night, or Middle Earth, or whatever. It'd be great.
It would, wouldn't it? Maybe we need to invent that in the future.
That would be a great invention, wouldn't it? I mean, just imagine that. Imagine in 100 years, a writer like me could be writing dream novels for people. What it is you experience when you go to sleep. That would be fantastic. I would scare the shit out of people. It would be so fun.
Well, saying that though, look what we're doing now. I mean, 100 years ago, can you just imagine somebody talking to... Whereabouts in the country are you, Damian?
London.
Oh, you're not too far away from me then. So you could talk to, like I was talking to somebody based in Ireland the other day on here, doing a recording. I mean, that just wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't even have entered anybody's mind 100 years ago, and here we are.
Yeah, isn't it great? I mean, I love technology, and it's this kind of thing which is fantastic. You know, the fact that we can just chat, you can record it, it can go out as a podcast, someone can download my book. It's superb. And what you were saying before was great. You know, the whole idea of I guess what I am is a punk publisher, right? I'm doing everything myself. All of the books, all of the editing, all of the book construction, all of the marketing, all of the websites. It's all me. I choose exactly what I do. And you're right, no one gets to tell me what to do, which is great. I love that. You know, I probably would be an absolute nightmare to edit for, because I'd reject what a lot of people say, because I don't think people understand what it is I'm doing or how I get the effects that I do. So why would I listen to them? Which is probably really egotistical, but you know, it's also my baby, so I get to choose how it's born.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like that, like in music as well. I interviewed Gypsy Lee Pistolero, and I know he'd had contracts for years, and he's suddenly started doing stuff himself because he realised that there was people telling him what to do, and they were like not selling like his stuff when they were selling. They were like holding back on the sales for other things and not quite. I want to say not treating them right, but it was all part of a game plan and not doing things the way he would have done them himself. So he started up his own label. Another band as well, is it the Puncturist, was saying a similar thing. So they've got their own labels. I think a lot of people are taking on more and more DIY approaches to things, because I think
I think that's great, though, but I think the important thing is people like you, because you need some kind of you need someone to curate it still. You know, you need somebody to say, actually, this is really good, you should check this out. This isn't through big corporate culture. It's not put out by a big corporation. This is a DIY thing, but this is a good DIY thing, and you should really check it out. We need visibility. We need people who actually say, this is worthwhile. I can't say for sure, but I would say any band you speak to who's running their own publishing label, that's the biggest thing they're after. They're after visibility. This is where people like you can become really important, because you help build and lead a community of people who are interested in what you might say is not the algorithm. It's beyond that, and that's what we all want. We don't want corporate fed shit. We want blood, sweat, and tears, right? We want reality on the page or on the vinyl. We want something that's real. I want to hear a song and be utterly turned over by it. I want to read a novel and be turned over by it. I want to hear a comedian and just be on the floor, unable to breathe. That's what I want. And what's really funny is, for the sake of corporate safety and ethics, things tend to get whitewashed a bit. We just simply more and more don't get people calling other people cunts on the radio, and we're all poorer for it. I really think so. I mean, it's really funny is people get really upset about swearing sometimes, and the swearing isn't the important thing. It's the emotion behind it. It's why it's going on. What are you swearing at, and why are you swearing at? And maybe it's saying people should look more closely at what's going on, because people tend to hide behind respectability quite a lot, and that's the whole thing with punk. It instantly says, no, respectability is off the table now, I'm afraid. You've got to start answering for what you've been doing. So I'm all about that.
No, I hear that. Definitely, I'm with that. Damien, what bands have you been in before? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh, nothing huge. I was in a band, Four Dead Men, which was a metal band for quite a few years. And then I went to university to study writing. I went to Ruskin College, Oxford. I went to Bath Spa. I went to Brunel for a master's. Then I started a band initially called Kodiak Moon. And we went through a few vocalists who didn't quite work out. We got a vocalist who was really great. She was actually a comedy performer, and unfortunately, she just couldn't commit really. We had a really important gig for us, and she just phoned me up like a couple of hours before saying, "I can't make it." It's like, what can you do? So it's a huge problem with bands. You know, it really is. You're only ever as good as your least committed member, because you know that's always the thing that's gonna screw you. And so we found a vocalist who was really good, Babsy Pushka, and we called the band Pushka. We even released an album, and the bassist for the band got hooked on heroin, and that got worse and worse. One gig was particularly annoying. We used to swap bass and guitar for different tracks because we both played bass and guitar, and so he bought his bass for one night. I bought my guitar, and funnily enough, for the first song, I was playing bass, he was playing guitar, and he was that off his head he didn't even tune the bass. So I walked onto stage, and the bass that he gave me was completely out of tune. I was absolutely fucking livid, and that night turned into an absolute nightmare. I mean, other stuff happened as well, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't give up my artistic possibilities when, you know, to the whims of other people who might just not turn up, or might, you know, get hooked on H or whatever it would be. And so I thought, no, I'm just going to write, because then if I might succeed, I might fail, but either way, I've only got myself to blame. And that made sense for me.
I just love what you said there about you're only as good as your least committed member.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you know, that's the first time I've thought of it that way. I've always been like the sort of person I'll keep going. I'll do what I can. I'll turn up, and I was in a band for 12 years, the same band, and you know, I had my children, and they were always very supportive of me, like with my children, everything like that. But yeah, there was other issues there, and it's, you know, and I'm quite determined, and I'm like, you know, I'm quite positive. I'm like, right, everybody keep going, let's keep going, and things like that. But you know, when you say it like that, it just it does bring it home to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's I mean, that's the issue of bands, right? I mean, I think there can't be a single musician in the world who's been in the band who hasn't had that exact same thing slapping them in the face. Because you always, you know, there's always one musician in a band who's, well, not always. You know, you look at actually pro bands like, say, The Police would be a good example. And, you know, all three of them were absolutely committed to doing what they were doing. Same with Queen. All of them were totally committed to what they were doing. They gave up potentially really good careers to do what they were doing, and they said, we're going to take this serious from day one, and we're going to go for it. And, you know, for every one of those, there's 1,000 bands that didn't make it and you've never heard of. But to have any chance, everybody's got to be pushing the car, haven't they? I mean, you know. And there's the other element as well, which I found, which was that I ended up doing all the work for everybody. Not all of it, I'm overblowing it, but like, I booked the gigs, I sent out the demos, I try to get people to the gigs, and everybody else is just thinking, yeah, I'm just doing whatever, I'm playing the bass or the drums or whatever. But they don't commit in the same way. They don't all push the cart, and I think that's what you need if you're going to create a strong band. Everybody needs to take a piece of the weight. Needs to bear the load, because there's a lot of it to bear these days. Especially if you're doing a punk production, because there's so much to do. Even online, there's so much to do. You've got to do a website, you've got to do a newsletter, you've got to do this, that, and the other, and everybody's got to pull their weight, I think. And the minute they don't, you start getting resentment, and that's death to a band.
I think I found as well, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you'll be working with people who they'll want to be in control of everything, and you try and help and you want to be involved, and there's so much more you can do, but like, oh no, we'll do it, no, we'll do everything.
I'd have loved to be honest, I'd have loved people like that. I never had anybody offer to do anything in any of the bands I was in. It was all just, yeah, we're happy for you to do it all, mate. No one ever said, oh, I can book gigs, or I can do this. That would have been great. I'd have loved it. Yeah. Well, I can imagine people who would be like that, but I mean, I'm not like that. I'm totally up for accepting help, but just never got any.
Yeah. It's because for me, like, I mean, I think that comes from our neurodiversity as well, Damian. Where we've struggled because I was born in like the early 80s, but in the 80s there wasn't that recognition of neurodiversity, so I would struggle a lot, and you learn not to speak up and ask for help so much because you get ridiculed, you get laughed at, because there'll be things that the neurotypical people can do and you can't do, which to them will seem so simple, but to you it's really difficult, and so you tend not to ask for help as much. And I've had to break through the barrier of that. Have you found that? Did you? I went through all sorts of stuff. The funniest thing was for most of my life in education, I was considered to be a bit backwards, and an idiot or whatever. And that was 100% due to my handwriting, which, as I've said, was a nightmare. And so I went through school in the bottom sets of everything. And then something really strange happened during secondary school. The school did a competition. They gave a challenge to everybody in the school to design an experiment to prove that maggots respirated, that they breathed in and out, right? And I was the only person in the entire school who wrote an actual plan for an experiment that would show this. And I was suddenly put in all of the top sets across the board. I was in set 1 for maths, science, everything, but with no support. And so I completely failed. Yeah.
It's like, to be fair, and I will be fair, I don't think when I was at school during the 80s, neurodiversity was a big thing. I think it was only just coming onto the map. I think autism was kind of more known about, but certainly not dyspraxia, or dyslexia maybe was. And so I think things are much better now. I think there is definitely more support for kids out there, and there's more willingness and more space for people actually getting diagnoses.
Yeah.
I think you can book in to your GP. You can say, I want to take my kid for neurodiversity screening, and you'll be able to get it. It might take time. That's the NHS for you, but I think it's better now.
Do you know what the annoying thing is, Damien? Have you ever heard of the Warnock Report?
I haven't, no.
The Warnock Report came out in 1978, and it was about neurodiversity in education.
Interesting.
In 1978, I'll let you. I'll get you look it up. But it's So it was a report that was getting schools to recognise like disabilities in children. Because a lot of studies have been taking place throughout the 60s and 70s, to recognise neurodiversity, not dyslexia, autism. I think our condition, dyspraxia, wasn't as, that was classed as more physical. But yeah, and the thing is, a lot of educational people knew about neurodiversity, but just didn't bother even take the time to learn about it. So they carried on with the old ways. I mean, we're talking about a time when, I think when I started school, they did like the physical punishments, and that just started to stop. Did they have physical punishments at your school, Damien? Or
it stopped just as I went to secondary school. I can't remember what year it was, but I went to secondary school the year they stopped caning. But in primary school, they used the slipper.
I know. I can't even think about that because it's sorry.
I've got no doubt. The way to deal with neurodiversity at the time was to beat it out of the children. And obviously that didn't work. I ask myself, in all honesty, what tools did the teachers have? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much it was known. I was only a kid at the time, so I wouldn't know. But they so obviously didn't have the tools. Like, if I went into school now and somebody saw my writing, they would say, "Oh my God, this kid's dyspraxic."
Yeah.
They would know that in 5 minutes, and I'd be sent for screening right away. They wouldn't even mess around. But that was never going to happen back then.
No. Yeah, it is quite a complex thing, and I do get a bit frustrated because I think this could have been, people like you and me could have got a bit of help sooner, instead of when they couldn't beat it out, when they couldn't beat the neurodiversity out of you, they'd like humiliate you and belittle you to not be neurodiverse, to put yourself in a box.
Stop being so autistic.
Yeah, stop being so dyspraxic. What, you can't catch a ball, what, you can't write properly, it's just, it's horrible, it's disgusting.
I used to have to do handwriting books. I don't know if you ever got given these things.
Yeah, the handwriting books, because computers didn't really, become a big part of education until after I left school. And
they should have known after 20 of these handwriting books all finished off, that I wasn't getting any better, that nothing was improving. They should have said, maybe something's not quite right here. Maybe we need to investigate this a bit further. But they didn't. It was just, he's a div.
Yeah. We can't work with him and all. I think a lot of people in education see teaching as a job. They don't really care about the kids. It's the way to be, like, I think when we were kids, it's a good social job, oh, you're a teacher, oh, aren't you, clever or whatever, in this day and age, it's like a lot of teachers working up the career ladders to head teacher, and the social standing of being a teacher. I think there was people who, the majority seem to be geared towards that, rather than you'd get like a minority of teachers who really love working in education and really love the kids and really want to help. Because I worked in education for a bit, and I worked in schools, and I was very much, I'd be the first to go, I think that child's neurodiverse, we need to, put steps in place. But a lot of people I worked with didn't give a shit, and I found that used to really, cut me, really.
It's sad, it's a lack of professionalism. But I think we recognise the really good teachers we've had, right? I mean, I can think back to several teachers who were great, none of whom were at primary school, but
primary school.
But we recognise the teachers who've been really good for us. It's actually not too much different in university. Academics can be very, very cloistered. To use the, I don't know if it's the wrong word or not, but they can be, and some of them are great. I had a mixture. I mean, I had some really, really good lecturers. I had some doing writing. We had lots of practitioners as well, so we got taught by people who were actually writers, and they tended to be fantastic. really, really good. They really loved the craft of writing and really wanted to teach it. So they were great. It's amazing that, bar the thing with writing, sometimes writing the completely wrong word sometimes, my dyspraxia doesn't intrude on my writing practice at all. So I'm really happy about it. I'm happy. There's a whole load of personality things, obviously, which are connected to what I do. But again, I've reached a point where I just don't really care about what people think anymore. Some people like me, some people think I'm an irritating bastard, and that's fine. It's up to them. I am who I am, as the song goes.
I was going to start singing it then, but I think that's another thing with us neurodivergent people. We've got to, you realise the hard way that you don't have to be liked by people, because in my mind, I don't know if you get this, things can be quite black and white, especially without because I haven't had the support. It's like, if you like somebody, they like, you smile at them, and if you don't like them, you frown at them, but it doesn't work like that in the world. Do you know what I mean? I've had to.
I don't know. There's another element of dyspraxia that a lot of people have. I don't know if you have it. Is that we tend to be top-down thinkers rather than bottom-up thinkers. So we like to understand things by the structure and the process rather than the individual parts that cause formation. So we'll think about, when we think about the way something works, we like to see the big picture. We like to see overall how the structure's put together, and then we'll build the individual bits as we can. We don't like learning things, tend to not like learning things with people giving us one little bit at a time, and then at the end the picture gets people. We want to see the big picture first.
Yeah. And
I think that there's an element of that leads into the way we deal with social interactions as well. We tend to want to see a whole person rather than just one aspect of their personality, which is kind of difficult when you're getting to know someone. But I think we do. I think we tend to build a bigger picture of people. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. It's just the way it is. It's the way it is for me anyway. I think that's one of the things about being, neurodiverse, or having a neurodiversity, is it tends not just to affect those direct things. Like with dyspraxia, everybody goes, oh, you're clumsy, you can't write, whatever. But there's a whole load of mental issues that come with that as well.
Yeah.
That aren't necessarily social, but they definitely have an impact on the social realm. It's complex. It's not an easy thing, This is turning into the neurospicy therapy podcast.
Here's the thing, it's something that has popped up quite a lot, because I feel like I had to hide it. I was diagnosed at 29. I was at university, and I felt like I had to hide it away. But in the past couple of years, I've been more open about who I am, and I've had a few podcasts where we've talked about neurodiversity and creators being neurodivergent and how that feeds into our creativity. So yeah. it's not a bad thing at all. It's what makes
we're coming out.
Yeah, we're coming out. Yeah, we're coming out. We can't, because it's what's been hard for me is you hear people, don't you, talk about when people don't know you're neurodivergent. You'll hear them talk about neurodivergent people, and it makes you not want to talk about yourself. Well, it used to with me, and now I'm just like, fuck it. This is who I am. It's actually hurt me not being me, and I'm not going to do that anymore.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's it. That's the key. I have to say, in everything I've done, in everything I'm trying to write, that is the key to living a happy life, is to say, honestly, fuck you to the world who doesn't like that. You just are who you are. And be that unashamedly is what I say. And that's how you maintain your personal happiness. What I'm doing now, I'm actually writing the third Generation Vex book at the moment. Vex on the Road, where they're going to go touring. They're going to go on their first national tour, which has been quite fun to write. There's a lot happening, and the biggest thing that's going to be happening is next year. I've got a gay rights quadrilogy coming out, 4 books. I've written 2 of them so far. I've got 2 more to write, and I'm writing what I'm hoping is going to be the most essential tome on gay rights the world has seen in the last 20-30 years, and it's going for the throat. It really is. There's so many elements of gay rights that have been quashed and hidden and swept under the carpet, but I'm pulling them all out again, and I'm giving them a fresh airing, and I'm being absolutely clear that there are some things that we have to make change. We really do. Yeah, and those books are about as punk rock as it gets, let me tell you. They really are on the absolute vicious side, because they need to be, because the stuff that I'm dealing with in them is incredibly horrific. So, yeah. So look out for those is what I'll say.
Yeah, so I would urge anybody to sign up to the newsletter, because you give snippets, don't you? You give bits for people to read, and it keeps everybody up to date with what you're doing and what you're working on, which I think is really good.
Yeah, so if you sign up to the newsletter on damianjclay.com, you get 3 free novellas, one of which is the prequel to Generation Vex. So it's a punk rock novella, and it's all about how the band formed and then broke up in the 80s. It's quite funny. It's very sweary. There's lots of punk songs in it, all original, obviously, and all of their time. And you'll get a weekly letter from me saying what's going on, and all of the news in my life, which might be a bit boring, but what I'm doing and what's coming out. I've got some really, really cool novels coming out over the next couple of months. Next month is Swan, as I said earlier, and the month after that is a book I think you'll love. It's a book about the culture war. It's called Cancel Culture Can't Save You Now, and it's about a neurodivergent kid who decides he must take on the UK and end the culture war. And so he goes to London to fight against the Piers Morgans and Owen Joneses of the world, to take them on. And it's hilarious. It's so funny. You will not stop laughing. But it's also spot on. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, you know what? Thank you for your time today, Damian. I really appreciate you coming on here and, us talking and chatting. I mean, there's been some really important chats here as well as talking about your work, which is important. This is what I mean about the neurodiversity. I think sometimes am I saying the wrong thing? Am I saying it right? I don't know.
No, it's been great, and thank you for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. It's been lovely to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too, Damian. And do you go out to gigs or anything? Do you get out, or do you?
I'm actually a little bit shut in, as it were. Long story, but I have PTSD from being gay bashed 20 years ago, so I tend not to get out that much, but I probably would if I didn't. So yeah.
Bloody hell, what happened there? Do you want to talk about it, or is that a no-go? Is that a trigger for you?
Oh, no, I can totally happily talk about it.
Okay.
It was about 20 years ago. I was attacked by 8 guys in Harrow bus station. I ended up I was kicked in the face and the body, so quite a number of times. I lost most of the eyesight in my left eye. I developed PTSD. Became a shut-in for 3 years until I managed to convince myself to get out and go to university, which I did. It's on and off, but I'm not as comfortable outside as I used to be. So I tend not to go out too much. So you take care. Lovely to meet you, and I'll say goodbye.
Okay, bye, Damian.
Take care. Bye.
That was Damian Jay Clay author and writer of Generation Vex. Thank you for listening to the Punk Rock Creators podcast. We'll catch you soon. Thank you. Bye.